Welcome back to The Big Show. It's Alex Belfield talking to Sir Michael Parkinson. Of course, the greatest interviewer of all time. What else do we need to know about you? I mean, sport's a big part of your life, isn't it?
Well, you need to know I wasn't the greatest interviewer of all time, the first thing.
Oh, come on,
No. Lots better than I just had a great time doing it. I'm a very blessed person throughout my life, really. I mean, I've worked with the best people. My timing was perfect. I got the last knockings of Fleet Street as a journalist. I got the very beginnings of commercial television. I got the BBC in its mighty prime. I was a lucky guy. I mean, look at the landscape now. It's a lot different. And, I feel sorry for young kids nowadays trying to get in the business. So, I mean, what you need to know is that I've been a lucky man. Timing is everything, being around at the right time. And if you look too in the 70s when I started doing my show, the timing then, again, was perfect. The stars walking down from Hollywood, basically, Muhammad Ali arriving on the scene, all that conspired to make it a memorable kind of occasion for me, if not the audience. So I was very, very lucky from that point of view.
Was there ever a moment you got carried away with yourself at your prime and you let your ego kind of get the better of you?
Yeah, I got a bit so big-headed and started drinking too much, and that happened. But then again, I mean, I've always been kind of self-sufficient. I've been able to sort of work it out for myself, how stupid I've been. So I just stopped drinking. I mean, I used to have this thing with George Best. He said, I don't know how to do it, pal. I said, it's very, very simple. You just don't drink, mate, George. He said, I can't do that. So, I mean, it's I've been lucky in that way as well. I don't think I've got an addictive personality as such. I mean, I stopped smoking like that. I mean, I just stopped because, when I finished drinking, I found myself compensating by smoking more and more and more. And again, I thought, well, why? I don't want to die young. I want to live a while longer yet. So I did all that. So I think from that point of view, again, I've been lucky, and my wife doesn't smoke or drink anything. So I've always had that kind of background, that family background as well to pull me back.
Do you have great sympathy for the stars who do get overtaken by the addiction and the celebrity of it all? Can you see how that can happen?
I can. I mean, I didn't become famous till I was 35. I feel particularly sorry for the very young people, pop stars and people like that, who at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21 become famous. And it's a problem. You have to deal with it as an adult. You have to deal with it and put it into context. And if you can put it into context against the family and all that sort of thing, that's one thing. If you've got nothing to prop it against, it becomes something entirely different. And then, of course, there's a different kind of fame. I mean, that kind of pop fame, that X Factor fame, and that sort of thing, where you're into a kind of collusion between the TV companies and the red tops and that sort of thing. Where if you're a woman, you pursue, your mail's gone through. People look up your skirts, photographers, deliberately. That's an appalling kind of fame to have, to deal with. I mean, even as an adult, that's difficult to deal with. As a young person, you literally have got no chance. And I understand and sympathise greatly with these young people who actually go off the rails.
When did it come normal that you were able to meet a megastar celebrity and it feel okay and relaxed? Because there is something in a room, isn't there, when somebody incredibly famous walks in?
Absolutely so. I don't think I ever lost it, and I don't think you should ever lose your sense of wonder in that sense. Which doesn't mean to say you should actually let it affect what you're doing. I mean, but it should make you feel very agreeable when you say, ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is Clint Eastwood. Well, who wouldn't like to meet Clint Eastwood, for God's sake? This wonderful figure comes drifting down the stairs, smiling at you as if he's known you all his life. And he hasn't. But, we'll play the game. So, I mean, it was always a buzz, always a thrill. And I never lost it at all. Of course, in the earlier days, it was even more apparent because the people that actually came down the stairs were often those that I'd worshipped as a child watching them in the movies. I mean, we didn't have television in those days. I was part of the movie generation. So they were my real heroes, and that was the biggest thrill of all, I think.
And in terms of you being friends with those celebrities, I think everybody guesses on the programme when they watch that there's one big club in show business that everybody goes to dinner, but actually that's often not the case. Were you quite picky and choosy about who you had to drink with afterwards?
I always went to the green room and always tried to persuade my guests to come to the green room, mainly to meet my mother and father, who were more starstruck than I was, for God's sake. I'm married too. I never actually got involved in the showbiz scene as such. I never got involved in first nights. I think I've been to 6 first nights in all my life. I don't like cocktail parties. I can't hear what people are saying, for one thing. When I can't understand it, and I've got no answer, no small talk. So I'm not bothered with that at all. So that's never been part of my life. I've made friends with about, I suppose, a dozen people who've been on the show. Friends in the sense that I still see them. We talk, we go out for dinner, have a meal, whatever it might be. But that's all. Not to 3,000 guests. That's not a bad thing. David Frost, my dear friend David, if he's interviewed 3,000 people, he's got 3,000 mates. I mean, he talks to everybody. And there's a wonderful thing we tease David with. You know, you could ring David up and he'll say, oh, just hang on, Mike, there's somebody on the other line. And he'll say, hello, Bootrus, how are you? Come on, David. Oh, Barack, how are you doing, Barack? But he's a dear mate. But David likes all that. David's got this wonderful way of combining his normal life with a life that really does features some very glittering people.
And in terms of America, I mean, he went over there and made his name.
Yeah,
were you ever tempted?
No. I went over there and I did a show with a guy called Dick Cavett, who was had quite a successful show, and it wasn't like a comedy show; it was a conversational show, a bit like mine. And what I saw over there, I did a co-production. We interviewed Ali and Frazier on the eve of their second great fight together. And what I saw out there, I didn't like. I mean, in his office, it was called Daphne Productions in New York. He had people standing on their heads in corners of the room, and I said, "What's that?" He said, "What?" I said, "That woman over there is standing on her head." Yeah? I said, why? He said, that's therapy. I said, what kind of therapy? I mean, it was all weird. I want to make a TV program, not join a keep fit class. You know, so it was a very different ethos. And of course, the stakes, certainly in those days, this was the 70s again, the stakes are much higher too in America. I mean, they were paid a fortune. I mean, he got paid in a minute, where I got paid in a year at the BBC. You know.
Do you think you were well enough paid to say how big a star you were? Because, of course, show business now runs by different rules. Yes. There's Jonathan Ross pay and all of that stuff that seems to have come and gone. Yes. Certainly he has from the BBC. Did you ever resent the fact that you weren't paid as much in your day as they are today?
No, I mean, I got the silly money when I went to ITV. That was the only time I've been paid what I would think is silly money. I mean, I couldn't believe. I mean, I was earning more in a week than my father owned in a lifetime. You know, in a sense. I mean, it was just balmy. But that was the game. It had changed. You know, my age. I was sad to leave the BBC in 2004, wherever it was. But my agent was delighted because he knew what the ITV prices were, and it was wonderful. It was my pension fund, in a sense, I suppose. You know, it never bothered me. I always thought I'd been paid enough. I was okay. And also, I'd been lucky because I had other streams of income. I was writing all the time. I was doing radio all the time. So you put the three together. That's very nice. So thank you very much, you know. And without the publicity, you know, you don't need that kind of publicity. It's very distracting. And Bill Cotton once said to me, he said, you know, the best advice I can give you is this: whatever you earn, good or bad, never tell them. Never let on, because somebody will make a fuss about it. And I never have done. I've never boasted about it. Never said it until this moment. Now, I mean, you know, I still wouldn't tell you what I earned. I mean, why should I? It's my business, nobody else's. It's
interesting because I was thinking about you this morning. I was reading Kenneth Williams. There's a new book about him, and he had a big problem accepting money, and in fact negotiated down from fees he was offered because he was too embarrassed by it. I know he's one of your classic guests and a really curious man. I've just had a row this morning about whether he was a nice person or not. Having read his diaries, I think the answer is probably not. No. But he was a great turn for a chat show.
He was a wonderful turn for a chat show, but he wasn't a nice person. You're quite right. He wasn't an agreeable man. He liked disagreeing with convention. He liked being spiky. He liked wrong-footing people. But it made him a wonderful guest on the talk show, I have to admit. He could become a bit tiresome. He could go off and ranting off on the same old stories, and sometimes he didn't know when to stop. But when he was on good form, he was up there with the very, very best. I mean, I had him on the show 7 or 8 times. I took him to Australia. I mean, and that was a laugh in itself. And what was strange about him in Australia was I thought that Kenneth, being gay, would actually like the Sydney scene because there's a lot of homosexuals in Sydney. There's a great gay Mardi Gras there. He didn't like it. He thought it was too overt. He thought it was too so full on in your face. He who spent a lifetime in the shadows, being afeared of being a homosexual, the first time he put him into a society where it was okay to be that person, he didn't like it. It was quite extraordinary.
Did you get the feeling he was ashamed of his actual persona and what made him famous? Because we all like to love his campery, but actually he wanted to be taken seriously.
I such a complex man. I don't know what he was actually. I mean, he would always go on about, I trained as a classical actor, I was the Dauphin and all this sort of thing. And then everybody loved nothing more than making an ass of himself, you know, coming on and being the camp voice and being the clown. He was very political, I mean, extremely so right-wing, if you like. But at the same time, he would actually deny that he had that kind of intellectual capacity. I mean, he was a strange, strange being. And we had him together on the show with Jimmy Reid. You know, there was that wonderful shipyard leader in trade unionists in Scotland who recently died. And he was on the programme with Jimmy Reid because he rang me up and said that Reid was a commie and he was going to face him on television. And I said to him, you know, Kenneth, pick your weight. What do you mean, dear boy? I said, the man is a skilled debater. And he said he's ignorant. And I said, no, that's the last thing he is. And of course, he came on the show and Jimmy Reid wiped the floor with him. And it was sad to see. But even after that, I mean, he didn't repent. He went back and wrote in his diary about how he met Karl Marx, you'd have thought, when he wrote about Jimmy Reid in his diary.
It's interesting you mentioned the word politics. I mean, you've interviewed some of the greatest politicians, but I wouldn't say you're political. Is that good advice to keep your mouth shut about stuff like that?
No, I am political. I mean, you can't have come from a background like I did from the Yorkshire coalfields, South Yorkshire coalfields, and not be political. I mean, and I've all my life observed politicians, and I have my own views about you know what they're like and what they stand for. But I never saw them as being, unless they stood out as individuals, as being as politics per se being part of the show. Indeed, when I did that show with Kenneth Williams and Jimmy Reid, it was Paul Fox, the boss of BBC, who called me up and said, "This is not the playground for politics." He said, that show, and he was right. It was about something else. I did have politicians on, but there were characters, people like Dennis Healey and people like that. People who got scuff marks. I mean, you know, Healey wasn't just a politician. He was a beachmaster, you know, at Anzio. You know, he went and had a hell of a war, this guy. He stood like a traffic cop with bullets going all around and directing traffic. You know, he was a full man. And a substantial man. So those kind of people would have a place on the show, but not as politicians as such, but as interesting human beings.
And in terms of the legends that are left, I mean, in comedy, there's Ken Dodd.
Oh, yeah.
They're all going. That's the problem, isn't
Yeah.
it? If you're able to do one last show with your dream lineup, with a comedian, a politician, an actor, and someone else, who is there left that you would still love to do?
Well, I mean, I think Peter Kay is going to fulfil that role that has always been important in my life, which is the stand-up comic, the traditional front-of-cloth comic, of which Ken Dodd is the greatest there has ever been. I mean, why he's not been knighted, well, we all know why he's not been knighted, somebody with income tax maybe, but you know, but he is a consummate comedian. I mean, anybody who aspires to standing on stage and telling a joke should first of all go and see him, because it's still there, it's still brilliant, it's wonderful. So, I mean, Peter Kay would be there. And I don't know about the rest. I don't really sort of think about it. I didn't notice of that question, as they say in other circles. Yeah.
It's been lovely talking to you again. You're in that small category of people that we remember by one name, Parky, Scylla, Cliff.
Yeah, Birdie.
Birdie, yeah, there is that.
Boix. Why are they all Yorkshiremen?
Is that nice? Does that give you something at night where you can go, actually, I've made it, I've done everything I want, they love me, they care about me, I've impacted on what I did, and now I've walked away. I wasn't booed off, I left when I'd had enough. Are you in a good place in your life?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got nothing to complain about. And Parky, it doesn't bother me at all. So I've had that all my life. As a child, I had that, you know. Some people call their dogs Parky and whistle me in and that sort of thing. But no. I mean, listen. I've been, as I said to the beginning. I mean, I've had a very lucky life indeed, and I have not a single regret at all. And if I were to live my life over again, I wouldn't miss anything out either. It's been wonderful, and it sounds terribly complacent, doesn't it? But it's true, and I've ended up with 8 grandchildren and a loving family, and Mary and I are still together. So what am I to be unhappy about?
Is travelling your greatest thrill at the moment, second only to the family?
I like travelling. I like getting away now and again. I like going to Australia, because Australians are sunburnt Yorkshiremen. They really are. My father believed that, and it's true. They're very like North Country people. They're very direct, very upfront. You know exactly where you stand with them. They're very generous when they like you. And when they take you, they take a long time to go off you. So, I mean, I'm at home there and always have been. So that's my bolt hole from here in the winter when it gets too cold.
Help me with the flight, though. 3 days you have to sit on this plane. And I hope you're not turning right, by the way.
Days.
Not 3 days?
I turn left. No, it's not 3 days. I mean, I don't do it now in one swoop. I go to somewhere like, say, Singapore and have 6 days there, 7 days there, or wherever the break might be, and then wandering. And what is more, I don't go there. The danger in Australia is that people go there, fly right the way through, and have 2 weeks there. That way, you catch your jet lag coming back again. So you're never free of it, and it's terrible. The older you get, the worse it gets too. So I have 2 months there at least. So I settle in. I start living their life to their lifetime, to their clock, and I love it. I'm very, very much at home there.
You're a fan of the Barbie, are you?
Of the Barbie? Yeah, sure. About the Barbie, Parky. Parko, they call me over there.
Did I?
Yeah. To give an example about the way they are, I mean, which gives you an indication how much like North Country people they are. When I first arrived in Australia, we had a press conference at the airport, and one journalist said to me, it's absolutely the first question I got in Australia, is it true you're coming over here to work because you can't get a job in England? And I thought, that'll do me. That's fine. That'll do me. I'm home.
Michael Parkinson, let's do some business for you then. You got this new book out. Oh, by the way, will you sign it for me? Because this is tremendous. Just beautiful and really heavy as well, so it'll do for kind of wedging open doors and all that stuff. A beautiful picture of you there on the front, looking delicious, if you don't mind me saying.
Thank you, Dan.
Has this been photoshopped, or is this the real you?
This is the real me. It's a real, just tweaked here and there.
And we can see all your best bits on the new DVD. Really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's coming out in November. That's a 5-hour DVD of the shows all the way through, and it's rather good. The book's nice too. It's lovely. It's a nice sort of summing up.
Sir Michael Parkinson, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.